The Indiana Pacers were very active during the trade deadline this year, and one of the pieces they received was a 6'10", 215-pound power forward in Jalen Smith, who previously was on the Phoenix Suns. Obviously, he didn't get a lot of run because he was playing behind players like DeAndre Ayton, JaVale McGee, and Bismack Biyombo. And Jalen Smith, since coming to the Pacers, has finally been able to carve out a role for himself on the Pacers rotation. And he's looking like one of the more underrated bigs in the league right now. And the trade, including Torrey Craig and a second-round pick, it's looking like one of the more underrated trades of the trade deadline this year. So what's up? My name is Pacers Empire. Today we're going to be talking about why the Indiana Pacers should bring back Jalen Smith in the offseason and what he can provide for them moving forward. So before we get into the video, I'd appreciate if you guys drop a like, subscribe to the channel. I'd appreciate it. We are trying to grow this channel to other Indiana Pacers fans. So I appreciate you guys drop a like, press the sub button, and let's get into the video. So since trading Domantas Sabonis for Tyrese Halliburton and, all those guys, Tristan Thompson and Buddy Hield, big men such as Isaiah Jackson and Jalen Smith have both been able to thrive as they've seen a lot of increased court time. And looking at it right now, Jalen Smith over the season, he's averaging around 8 points per game, 6 rebounds on 50% from the field, and 32% from the three. And looking at his Pacers stats, he's averaging around 13 points per game, 8 rebounds and 1 assist on 56% from the field and 41% from the field, which is impressive for a player who barely got any playing time on the Suns. I like the fit of Jalen Smith on the Pacers because he's actually finally able to thrive in a role that isn't behind another young star, obviously in DeAndre Ayton. The situation in Phoenix was that DeAndre Ayton would start at the center, and then JaVale McGee and Bismack Biyombo would be the support on the bench, and Jalen Smith wouldn't get any run. But looking at it right now, he's able to thrive in a role that only has Miles Turner, Goga Bitadze, and Isaiah Jackson. So I think he could start at the power forward because he does play the power forward, but he can also play a small ball 5, which is an interesting thing to see, but he's a little bit skinny for that role. But I think he can play the small ball 5. It just depends on where you want him and what he does best. So he started in 4 games, and since then he's been putting up near double-double performances each game, dropping 15 points, 6 rebounds, and 3 assists last night against the Wizards, and he also threw in a block in there too. So we also have to remember that he was traded for Torrey Craig, in which the Pacers also received Jalen Smith and a future second-round pick, which is looking like a pretty great trade by the Pacers front office right now. I'm not too sure who the Pacers GM is right now. You guys can let me know in the comments if you guys know who it is. But yeah, I mean, the Pacers front office is looking like one of the more underrated front offices. They got Tyrese Halliburton. They traded for Buddy Hield, who's looking like a pretty great role player. They waived Tristan Thompson. They got Jalen Smith. They have all these players. And they also have Chris Duarte, who's looking like one of the most NBA-ready rookies out of this class. And overall, they have a good future. So this move, in my opinion, is viewed as a low-risk, high-reward move because you give up a role player in Torrey Craig, who wasn't doing too much for you off the bench, for a young forward who can develop into a great big. And looking at it right now, if he's able to keep up this high level of play, then I think he could maybe be like a 10-10 guy, or maybe like a 12-10 guy at least, because he's able to rebound the ball. And we will get into his game pretty shortly right here. But yeah, I mean, the trade is looking like a really, really low risk and high reward trade. So Jalen Smith, his game really consists of taking threes, but also being able to finish around the rim. Obviously, because he is a big, he can dunk the ball, he can drive the ball. There were a lot of times last night against the Wizards where he got a lot of open looks in the post and getting a lot of looks, getting some pretty great dunks in the post. So his strength is being able to stretch the floor as a 6'10 forward, but also being able to run the pick and pop or the pick and roll, whichever you prefer. But he's able to really just do that pick and pop, because there was a lot of times last night, Malcolm Brogdon and Jalen Smith was able to get open from 3, and he can knock down the 3-pointer if he wants to. He can't really knock down contested threes because that's not really his game. But if he's open for 3, he's going to take that. And it's a really great thing to see because, Miles Turner, as good as he is pretty injury prone. So having another big man right there that can just stretch the floor is going to be a huge pickup for them, man. His rebounding ability is also an underrated aspect of his game, as he's able to rebound at a high rate. So last night against the Washington Wizards, he grabbed around 6 rebounds, but he also did dish out 3 assists. In the last few games against Detroit, he grabbed around 11 rebounds. The game before that against the Orlando Magic, grabbed 15. So if you look at his previous games right here, he's actually a rebounding monster. The one real thing that's going to set him back is his small body frame. He does have a slight frame, kind of like a Christian Wood type of player, but I'm not saying that they're the same player or the same level, but they do have both small frames. And the one real thing that I want to see from Jalen Smith in the offseason is, getting some more muscle, bulking up, and overall just playing at a bigger position, because I think he can. if he puts on some more muscle, some more weight, then I think he's going to be able to compete with the bigger guys like Giannis or Joel Embiid or Jokic, who we will talk about later. I mean, but overall, he does have a small frame, man. The one downside to his game is that he plays soft sometimes, and that's really just due to his small body frame. And his defense is a little bit lackluster at times, too. There were some games I've watched previously where he was going up against people like Giannis or Joel Embiid, some just like bigger guys than him, and he couldn't really contain them because A, he has a small frame, B, his defense is pretty bad, his footwork is pretty slow. He's pretty much a slow player. I mean, I wouldn't really say slow, but he's a pretty average player, running up and down the court. Transition, nothing too great there, but if he does put on some more weight, like I said, more muscle mass, then I think he's going to be able to compete with bigger guys in the post. But as of right now, his defense and him being soft in the post is going to be a huge downside to his game. Other than that, he has a lot of time and room to grow as he's only 21 years old. He was the 10th overall pick in the 2020 draft by the Suns. I wish the Suns really kept him and decided to play him over Bismack or JaVale. I think he could have thrived behind DeAndre Ayton, but he's getting a lot more run with the Pacers, and he's been starting in some games. I think only in 4 games he started, so at least that's a little bit more than the Suns. But he does have a high ceiling. I think he does have one of the highest ceilings that I've seen in a while from big men. I mean, if you look at it right now, Evan Mobley, he's looking like one of the more impressive big men we've seen in a while. If you're looking at anyone else in the last few years, I mean, I'm not counting any of like the superstars, but I'm talking about like rookies. I mean, Zion has been pretty amazing, but he's been injury prone. So you see the trend here. It's going to take some time to develop big men, but when they do fully develop, you can see Joel Embiid, Nikola Jokic, they can turn into people like that. So it's going to be interesting to see what Jalen Smith develops into the future, but we'll finally get into his contract. So his contract had the player option on it earlier this season, but he declined it because he was on the Suns and he didn't want to play with them moving forward. So if the Pacers decide to pick up his contract next season, it could be a cheap option if they don't land within the top 3, as the top 3 prospects are all forwards and centers. So yeah, I mean, Jalen Smith, he could be a cheap option if they don't get a Paolo Banchero or Jabari Smith. And that's really just the reason why I think they would bring Jalen Smith back, is if they don't get a top 3 pick. Now, they could decide to trade up in the draft. Maybe they get 4 or 5. They can package maybe, I'm not too sure, like TJ Warren, Malcolm Brogdon, Buddy Hield. They can package a mixture or a combination of one of those 3 and add in their pick this year to maybe move up into maybe like 3 or 2. So I'm not too sure what's going to be happening with the Pacers. I'm hoping they do land within the top 3. They're one of my favorite teams, like I said, because I made this channel, but they've been one of the more interesting teams as of late. They have been losing, so that's the one downside to this team, but they've been pretty enjoyable to watch. So Jalen Smith, his game meshes pretty well with Tyrese and Malcolm Brogdon. The one thing that's going to set this team over the hump is if they can get a good forward, a good small forward, or a good power forward. Because Jalen Smith, I think he could be a starter. It's going to take him some time. I think it's going to take him some time to develop his body and overall just get that muscle mass and that weight. But the one thing that's going to set this team over the hump is getting a good, solid small forward. Jabari Smith would be absolutely amazing. Paolo Banchero would be pretty amazing. I'm not even too sure who the other prospects are. Maybe I think his name was Keegan Murray, or I forgot his name, but if they can get a good small forward, AJ Griffin, that's another name that popped into my head, but if they can get a good small forward, a good power forward, then I wouldn't be too mad about it. And hopefully the Pacers bring back Jalen Smith, as he's one of my favorite players on the team to watch right now. So that's the end of the video. My name is Pacers Empire, and I'm out. Peace.